Well, there's two ways of serializing a novel. One is to finish the whole novel and then chop it up into bits and serialize it the way they used to do in the 50s and 60s in glossy magazines with novels. But the other way is the old original way, which is how Dickens wrote Pickwick Papers. He wrote it in what they called numbers, which were like maybe 3 chapters. And they put them out in little pamphlets. And if those were popular and they sold, you continued. So if they weren't popular and they didn't sell, you didn't continue. And if people liked a certain character, you made that character bigger, which is what happened with Pickwick. And he was therefore much more interactive than the mid-20th century way of finishing the novel and then chopping it up and putting it out there. So I'm doing it the Dickens way, which means that when I started it, I didn't actually intend to keep going with it. It happened that way because people responded to it, and we're about to publish number 4. If I really were Charles Dickens, I would be writing faster because he was a really fast writer. I would say it's a challenge, which is always of interest. At least you don't go to sleep. At least you know you're not dead. But it is also. Have you ever done any whitewater rafting?
I have.
Okay. Have you ever done any whitewater canoeing?
No.
It's like whitewater canoeing, which is more dangerous than whitewater rafting.
I imagine, yeah, more difficult.
So it is like that, and it is a thrill a minute, and you do wonder in the middle of it how you, why are you doing, this is too frightening. Why am I doing this?
Is it frightening because you're constantly getting feedback?
It's frightening because you have not yet written the end.
Okay.
So it is a lot like, I wonder what you did on Halloween. I wonder whether you ever did that blindfold house number in which you're kind of going around like this and somebody says this is the bowl of eyeballs. So it's a bit like that. You cannot see around the corner after the next. You can see around maybe the next corner. But the corner after the next is not totally known to you. So in that way, it's more like, did you ever tell stories around the campfire or have an ongoing story that you told to a child that you were making up as you went along to keep the child amused? So it's a lot more like that. It's a lot like really archaic forms of storytelling that are improvised rather than plotted out all in advance. Any novel you write has to have suspense in some way, whatever that way may be. If we knew in chapter 1 entirely what was going to happen in the whole rest of the book, if we were reading for plot, we might feel that we had already had the experience. Of course, plot isn't the only reason we read, which is why we go back and see Hamlet time and time again, even though we know what happens. We actually know what happens. So to find out what happens isn't the only thing that's going on when you're writing literature. You also, it's not only what happens, it's how it happens. And there are many approaches to that. One of the really innovative films of the 20th century was Rashomon, in which you hear the same story from several different points of view. And not until we channel the ghost of the murdered man through a medium do we feel that we really know the story. But of course that ghost might have been lying as well. So who's lying, who's telling the truth, who's telling the story? They're all involved in narration. And it's with any book you want to read again, it's not only what happens, it's how it happens and to whom it happens. Who are the people and why did they do those things? Why did they behave the way they did?